Hey everybody, and welcome to Adobe Live. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Gus Martin, and I'm joined by the wonderful and talented Noelle Stransky. She is a product designer for Riot Games and just a wonderful person. So if you're watching, please say hi in chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I see the one and only P. Siller in chat. We've got Wade and Moat. We've also got Jack in chat again. If you're coming back and you caught the stream yesterday, thanks for coming back. If it's your first time, don't worry. We're going to catch you up to speed and you'll be able to follow along with us. So without further ado, I'm just going to turn the floor over to Noelle so she can introduce herself to you all.
Hey folks, thank you again so much for joining. It's super great to meet everybody. I'm Noelle. I am a senior product designer currently working at Riot Games. So I primarily focus on UX design, and I've got a lot of experience in my career working particularly in mobile applications, but also doing some work with gaming companies and companies working on television interfaces.
Yes. And like we learned yesterday, she's done a lot of Android design, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely a fan of Android. I've spent some time working at a bunch of little tiny startups and also some like bigger Fortune 500 companies. And yeah, a lot of my bread and butter is everything from like really big giant screens to little tiny phone screens and smaller screens.
The master of screens.
Yeah,
I love looking at all of your designs. It's cool to see.
Thank you.
I think when it comes to like with UI UX product designers, you sort of have like your own, like if you look at an Illustrator and you're like, oh, that's an illustration from that person. You can sort of probably look at your designs and be like, oh, Noelle designed those, which is pretty neat. You got your own style.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, definitely on the spectrum. My strong points are definitely more in the UX design side of things. So my visual design skills are passable.
They're great. Today we're going to be focusing on some more wireframes, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And for those of you who don't know, we're making an app we were working on yesterday and we'll be working on it today, a companion app for Animal Crossing. So if you like video games or Animal Crossing, this is going to be great for you. Or if you're just curious about mobile app design, this is a great stream for you.
Yeah. When I was thinking about what to make for this live stream, one exercise that's really fun to do, particularly if you're interested in working in certain areas, but maybe don't have any experience working in it yet, is to create kind of a mock-up of design for something that improves your life in like a game that you enjoy working on. So for me, I love Animal Crossing. It is my jam. I spent most of last year inside of it. And one of the pain points that I found in it was right now, fossils is an item that you can find inside the game, but the game doesn't do anything to tell you whether you've found all of them. And it kind of leaves you hunting. So that's a problem that's been annoying myself for months, that I was like, you know what, how about we work on some UI to maybe address this problem and see if we can come up with a good solution.
I love it. And I think it helps the completionist in all of us. I told you yesterday, but I'm like that about the fish. So if I cared more about fossils, this would be very much my jam. Probably make something to bolster the fish experience in the game.
Yeah.
I just want to really quickly say hi to some folks in chat. We've got Nicolette. She was here yesterday. S. Kunamilis back again. Greg, thanks for joining us. Uriala's back again as well. And Maya. We've got a bunch of folks in chat. Tasmia, thanks for joining. And Karthik, you too. Thanks for joining. We're really happy you're here. As Noelle's working, if you have questions, I'll be keeping an eye on chat, and then I'll deliver them to her when I can, and then she'll get to them as soon as we can.
Awesome.
Cool.
Sweet. And I can give should I do a quick little recap of what we did yesterday?
Yeah, that sounds great. maybe
Yeah,
catch them up to speed if they didn't catch the first part.
yeah. So yesterday, I mostly spent kind of the beginning of the day setting up a bunch of mobile best practices, as far as like documents and sticker sheets, and things to know about designing for mobile in general. And then we jumped in and started work on kind of a quick sketch, using components of like a list view of what it could look like to see all of the fossils. So this was kind of one of our first sketches. Uh, where we've got a table list view, and for each one of the creatures or dinosaurs, we've got a header for their name and then the pieces that they're made out of inside. Um, and starting to play around with as well too, this would imagine that in a perfect world, the game would somehow know this. Uh, that if you haven't found an item, it would still display as this icon, which this is what in game it looks like before you find the or when you find the fossil. And then
Before Blathers takes a look at it.
yeah, in the game
Our
you
good
have to
friend.
take it to the museum to be identified by Blathers, and then after he identifies it, then it turns into this little icon. Yeah.
Cool. Love right back to you, Karthik, in India. I'm in Ohio. We're pretty far from one another, but it's cool that we can communicate in real time over the internet.
Oh, and thank you for joining. So last night I did a little bit of kind of behind the scenes thinking. There was a really great suggestion in chat yesterday from someone about also thinking about the other things that you can catalog inside of Animal Crossing. So we chatted a little bit about, so for here's an example actually of what it looks like inside the game. So for insects, fish, and sea creatures, the game actually does have UI to show you how many items are available. So you don't necessarily get to see what you're missing, but once you've caught something, you do get to see its variations. And yeah, so sea creatures, fish, and insects. And then I just also thought the Nook Miles page was kind of interesting to take a look at, because this is another like progression catalog style UI in the game.
I love the colors that they've used for the whole concept. It's like so peaceful and I don't know, bright and happy.
It's so bright and fun. And you can see that I kind of started doing that last night. Like as I was, I wanted to just throw together like an example of what it could look like if it was just these couple features inside of an app. And looking at gray screens for so long, I was like, I really want to pull some color in because Animal Crossing is so much fun.
Yes.
So like generally your wireframe should still be black and white, because as humans we get kind of caught up on color, but I couldn't resist trying to get some color inside of it. So there's actually, so thinking about it from kind of a high level, at least for now, the couple sections I could think of that I brainstormed in the app, one would be a section just about your catalogs. So this would have tabs for fossils, creatures, art, and then potentially even clothing and or furniture items could end up in there.
Cool.
Which I might add that in as a little note.
Are you the type of player that do you like always buy the clothing from the shop that you don't have? Or are you selective about your closet?
I'm selective about my closet unless I think it's something that I can sell on a market for.
Oh, you're a hustler. You're an Animal Crossing hustler.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some items that I've been more motivated by, like I'll collect these so that just in case if like I can get them for something else on one of the swap websites.
Have you ever purchased the crown? Like isn't there like a golden crown that costs like $1 million or something?
Oh no, I didn't pick that one up. Yeah, there is one that's really expensive. I picked up one that was like 100,000 bells, which still felt very expensive, but
yeah, I had the opportunity to buy that at one point, but obviously I didn't have 2 million bells.
Yeah.
Who knows if I'll get it again?
No, that's probably all that I have saved up. Yeah. So
Cool.
normally, like doing an application design process, I would do a step like this first, where I would look kind of from a high level, what are all the features that we want to support inside a mobile application, and diagramming stuff out into an information architecture diagram.
Hmm.
It's a nice way to see if your app may be throwing a ton of stuff in one section that may be better dispersed around the application, or if you're just like over time when you've made an app that like more stuff ends up in profile than really needs to be there.
Hmm.
So I highly, highly recommend for your UX design process to kind of diagram stuff out. Um,
Cool.
since this is kind of a quick thing, I just dropped this in as a quick diagram. IA diagrams can get super complicated and you can have more decision points. But for just the purpose of this, doing a quick little sketch is fine.
Right. And you've sort of laid out all of your pieces. So, even though it's not a full diagram, you can see there the important bits, which is cool. We have a quick question from Uriel from yesterday. They're wondering the sections on your mobile screens. Are there portions of the screen that you try to keep stationary in an attempt to help developers? Like maybe speaking about the top and the bottom of the screen. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. And that's actually a good question because I figured out how to do this. I generally actually I'll come back to this one. So on Android, the software back button down at the bottom will always stay pinned to the bottom of the screen. Some folks choose to not even display that, but I like to keep it in because it reminds non-Android users that it's there. So that is usually pinned, and the status bar up at the top is pinned. There's a little bit of debate between platforms as far as things like this bottom bar or tab bar. Originally, they were generally pretty omnipresent and stayed pinned, but more so recently, I think both Apple and Google have been encouraging folks to use a bar that moves. So if you've got a really long scrolling view, that your top section and your bottom section hide. The only thing that slightly worries me about that is as humans, we kind of suck if we don't see something directly on screen. So once you hide it, it's really easy for people to forget that it ever existed. And sometimes they won't go back.
That says something about the human psyche, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Like general pro tip for mobile is that like a exposed visual control on screen works way better than a hidden control. So if it's something that you're okay with, maybe some users losing it, it's okay to kind of hide stuff. But if it's like something mission critical and crucial that you want to encourage users to go to, like keep it in front, center, and like in their eyes. Because we're weird creatures.
I found it really interesting that like I think Apple does this probably more than like iOS does this more than the other platforms, but like there's a bunch of hidden gestures on like your Magic trackpad or like on an iPad if you like tap with 3 fingers or 2. Like you sort of only know about if you discover them. Like there isn't really a thing that's like use this, it'll make your life better. I always found that kind of interesting. I don't know why that's the case. Do you have any insights there from like a user experience?
Mostly just confirming that as well. We've seen that as well too, that in mobile apps, especially if it's like a hard press, it ends up being more of a power user feature. So for the folks that remember and use it often, they love it. But for folks that may have not, or like don't use the force touch, it just never occurs. So yeah, generally I like to save that for something it's a power user, but not a mission critical item.
Right. That makes sense.
And if it was, that might be time for a little tutorial or some like a tooltip to remind you like, hey, if you press down here, we'll do magic things.
I love magic tooltips. I have a question from Tasmia about 3D objects in XD, but it seems like that might be something we could probably get to a little bit later if we get to prototyping.
Yeah.
It's up to you though.
Yeah. And I don't know how much I get answer about 3D objects.
Okay, cool. Tasmia, we'll get to your question if we get to prototyping, but in general, it was around how to scale 3D objects in XD.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
And thanks for asking.
So I'm going actually I was thinking about this design last night and thinking on it a little bit more. And I have one more version of this that I actually want to try out because I'm not liking that as much. And while this list view is fine and it works, it doesn't feel like the fancy Animal Crossing cuteness. So I'm going to try a new thing. I'm going to grab these two components to start off of. So let's see how this works. Actually, I'm going to detach this one and make it its own new component. Group component. So the one thing I was thinking about is removing some of the initial information and making it larger pictures that then you tap on the items and it would pull up a modal that would have more of the details. So this would allow us to focus on the cute pictures and maybe add a little tap functionality in here to make it fun.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good idea. One thing I forgot to mention folks about in chat is later in this stream, in a little over an hour, we're going to be doing something called the Artist Spotlight, where we're going to highlight someone's work from the community and just give them a shout out and encourage you to check out their work. If you'd like to get a shout out in a future Adobe Live session, or you know of a designer that you think deserves one, all you have to do is fill out the form. It's right above chat on Behance. If you're watching on YouTube, come on over to behance.net/Adobe Live. And then you'll see it right there above chat. It's called the Artist Spotlight tab. You click on it, fill out the form, and then you can just submit suggestions, either yourself or some of your friends. And then they'll be in the pool of people we select from for folks to be in the Artist Spotlight every week. So we can look forward to that in about an hour.
Awesome. So what I'm doing right now is just setting up a component with an image or an image placeholder that I can drop an image into. So let's see. Placeholder.
Hey, George Lopez from Southern California. Thanks for joining us. Fossil Blob.
Yeah.
The perfect name.
Bring this back over here and let's see how this is going to work. So this may look really gross. We'll see.
I love it already.
I'm going to fill you with a little bit and make the border light. So one of the things that I love about Animal Crossing and like other games in general is I've seen some really nice like little watercolor blobs. So thinking about the fossils, particularly the shape of them, I'm going to grab an image off my desktop for the little fossil guy.
There it is.
I like how it's kind of pixelated, but it's not a perfect circle. There's a little texture to it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do inside of here is make a couple little blob shapes that are just kind of free form.
Cool.
Actually, I'm going to hide you for now.
And you're just using the pen tool to create these shapes?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I might go a different direction for this one. We'll see if this looks nice at all. It may not.
S. Kunamili suggests the Blob plugin.
Yeah.
I've never used it.
There's actually a really great website that generates blobs. I don't know what it is, but we used it at a previous company and it's so great.
That's cool. If you're feeling adventurous, we could look on the plugins panel to see if we can find the Blob plugin.
Yeah.
But we don't have to.
Let's see. So what I'm doing inside of this object that looks like chaos right now is I'm going to paste appearance, and hide this back one. So I've got a couple little blob shapes inside of here in this component so that I can kind of turn them on and off.
Cool.
And that might be a little big. Whoops.
Val's wondering if you have any favorite or go-to plugins that you use.
Ooh. There's a really nice one that I'm forgetting the name of for like images that's got a lot of like diverse people images.
Oh yeah. Is it Diverse UI?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
We have some suggestions for the blob plugin too. One is called blobmaker.app. Maybe that's what you were referring to.
Yeah.
Another one's called Blob Mixer. So apparently there's a blob plugin and 2 websites out there that will make blobs for you.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
Love this. All right, so I'm going to just have, so I've got my image and one of my blobs.
Thanks for all the help in chat. Keep the suggestions and information flowing. Diana Lee says, "Hi Noelle, awesome seeing you on here."
Thank you for joining. Hey.
Thanks for joining, Diana.
So let's see. So my hope was that with these little components that I can, so I turned this into a component. So now I can just kind of copy and paste. And then actually, oh wait, nope. I'm going to do one more step. Now that this is a component, I'm going to add a new state. And this new state will have the other blob on. And one more new state. We'll have blob number 3 on.
Cool. It's a blob party.
Yeah. So I think this will allow.
What type of music do blobs listen to at parties?
New house.
Blob Marley. Oh no.
Oh, that is great. You get 10 dad joke points.
I'm here all night.
All right. So this is maybe not as nice as one of the blob plugins, but
now you've got Blob Marley on the mind.
It gets me there.
Let's see. That's great.
And I'm gonna keep this guy over here. Okay, so I think this might get me there towards like a slightly cuter UI. Maybe my blobs need some finessing and a little bit of work. And I think I'm actually going to go back to my original component and make sure that this layer lives inside of it.
Oh, nice.
So I'll put...
See how easy that is because you built it the way you did?
Yeah.
That would have been a pain if you hadn't done like the root component. Uh-oh, they heard my joke in chat. We got some lols, but I'm sure they're rolling their eyes. I think Wade is.
Let's see. Actually, just for quickness sake, I'm going to just kind of drop these over the top.
Nice.
You're going to go over here and then grab a couple images that I have.
Wade says, me? Never. He totally rolled his eyes when I made that dad joke.
And then actually I realized, delete this really quick. Group component. Wait, no. So I want to drop you into here. Why won't you let me? Oh wait, maybe I need to add it to the default state. Huh, all right. Well, for now, we will brute force it. So I will ungroup you. Then, oh no, where did my fossil go? Here you are. You on and put you up above here. So I've got my blob component. I'm gonna drop the unidentified fossil inside of here. Also wanna drop my identified fossil in here.
Nice.
And for
looks
now,
like we've got Tim Mobeast in chat under a pseudonym. I'm pretty sure that's you. Zombie Army 807. Oh, we got a question from S. Kunamili.
Yeah.
Can you please talk about what info you ask clients before taking projects on, and what basic UX research methods you do before wireframing?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually probably some really good books out there to recommend. I really love some of the books by Mike Montero. I think he's got one that like Design is a Job. And Mike is phenomenal and a little bit like a uncle yelling at you that you're doing your job wrong. So he's got his stuff is a little bit of tough love. But I think some of his talks from Interaction conference are actually up on Vimeo. So I totally recommend giving them a read. Usually the first question that I chat with folks about for freelance projects is what's your budget? Because often there are a lot of people that are like, I have a great idea for an application and no money. So often it's like, okay, that's great. I can't help you.
You're like, you got it.
Yeah, like that's awesome. And so making sure that like not only are like you a good fit for the position for what they want, but also like do you have the skill set that they need, and or do you have the time, is it worth the money, etc. So like remember that when you're asking them questions, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, and it's also okay to say no to a client. I know it can be a little bit of a hard thing, especially when you're starting out, but the more that you can make sure at the beginning that's it's going to be a beneficially positive relationship, the better. Yeah.
It's I think that's a hard lesson that a lot of people learn early on, is they say yes to too many things and then they don't have as much success as they might have otherwise.
Yeah.
If they had like you know taken the advice that you just gave. So I think that's really, really sound advice.
Yeah, and it can be super hard to like tell someone no and to fire a client, but sometimes it needs to happen because you're not a piece of software. You're worth a lot more than you think. And if they're not respecting your time and or paying you, like, don't do it.
Yep. Hey, Tim, good to see you. Alvin's wondering where the music is coming from that they're listening to. And I think a majority of our music is actually from Chill Hop Records. So if you just Google that, you can find they have out like 4 albums a year that they release. And it's all really good work music. Also, Kathleen's in the chat. Thanks for joining, Kathleen.
Thanks for joining. Cool. All right, so I think I've got it right this time. So now for this component. So what I ended up having to do is when I was creating the component, I piled everything in the same package together, laid on top of each other, so that I know that I can create a component that I can switch between identified and unidentified fossil, but then also toggle on a couple of the actual portions of the fossils.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all of these kind of sitting inside of here.
Cool. Uh-oh, we've got a Bonkosaurus in chat again. Do you remember yesterday when Val said she would be a dinosaur that would bonk other dinosaurs?
Nice.
She says that chat's a bonk-free zone, but I don't believe it.
I love it.
And Karthik, I don't have the YouTube chat up right now. So folks on YouTube, if you jump on Behance and ask your question, I'll see it. Otherwise, if you can't get on Behance, we do have a moderator that's keeping an eye on that, and they can deliver questions to me if they have to, but that's only in extreme cases. Sorry, you've got the floor.
5. I'm gonna do, let's see, we'll make this, oh, shoot. I need you in here too. Right. Let's see, state 4, we'll do this one.
It's
State
definitely more
5.
work up front to do it this way, but it pays off in the long run.
Yeah, it ends up like it can be a pain and kind of confusing to set those up. But the really nice thing is, oh, and actually, I wonder, let's try this with a repeat grid. Let's see if this works. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So this is actually a really nice way with the repeat grid, just to get a nice grid going. And then I might tighten up some of these spacing wise.
Nice.
And then I think I can come into here and choose different states. Yes. Go. So this will be the default. Oh, no, no. Oh, maybe not. Well, that might be one difference with the repeat grid. I'll just do this the old-fashioned way. See, so just going in, and I'll probably leave the rest of those as blank. I think I see a little hidden one right here. Cool. So the next thing that I was curious about with this one is maybe making it so when you tap on one of these items, it actually opens up a modal over the top. So I'm going to drop in, actually, let's take a look. So yesterday I chatted about some of the sticker sheet components that both Apple and Google have created. So now that I think about it, I'm going to actually come back over to Google's material design. So I know they have a nice dialogue on, so these are called dialogues on Android and modals on iOS. So I'm just going to borrow this, and we will.
Just realized that I've been muted for a little bit. Apologies.
No worries.
I've been totally silent over here.
Like, it got quiet.
I was saying, why do they always have to be different?
Yeah.
Like everyone wants to do their own thing.
It's very interesting. Like, there are subtle language differences depending on the dev team that you're working with. Some devs don't care as much. Others can be a little more particular. So on iOS, this bottom bar is called a tab bar. Mm-hmm. But in Android has an actual tab bar, which is this component. So this is actually called the bottom navigation. Okay. So there's like subtle language differences that when you're communicating with developers for what you want, it's really good to know the different names of each little item.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good to know. I feel like if you're just starting out, it would probably be good just to kind of like memorize all of those little small differences so you can feel like you're really informed and know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Muhammadul, welcome to the chat. We also have Anime Elephant, who was here yesterday. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Really happy to see you. If you have any questions as Noelle's working, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to deliver them. Yeah, she's working through an experience that's part of a companion app for Animal Crossing right now.
So I think this is a plesiosaurus. So I'm starting out with kind of the base dialogue design style. Might move these guys down.
Instead of lorem ipsum, do you ever use any of those funny replacement ipsums?
I do. I actually love using like the hipster ipsum.
Oh,
I hate
nice.
to say, the gamer ipsum is kind of fun too, but it uh, is on the edge of PG-13 sometimes.
Oh, I see. I've never seen the gamer ipsum, but I need to check that out.
There's some
I've
really great
heard
ones.
of the bacon ipsum,
Ooh,
which is also one. Hey, Santiago, welcome to the chat. Thanks for joining. For those folks that are just joining, we're going to do a segment, like a very short little segment in about an hour called the Artist Spotlight, where we will highlight somebody from the community. We've already selected today's artist and designer, but if you'd like to submit your profile or someone you know, we can bring that into consideration for future segments. So feel free to do that. You can find a link to the form right above chat on behance.net/Adobe Live.
let's see. So the primary thing when I'm working on kind of wireframes, the big things that you want to make sure is just the art, is all the data there? Is the information that is being displayed there? And then are the flows correct going from screen to screen? I I will admit some of this is kind of like in that awkward middle ground where I've got a little bit of color and I am leaning on the material UI. So it does kind of look like it's a little bit of a finished UI, but it's not, and it's not there yet. It doesn't have a visual design pass.
But it's good enough for now. You know,
Yeah. And it's also, it's like a good exercise too, just when you're working on the wireframes to do a version that looks really bad in black and white, that's sketchy, just so you can get the ideas out on paper. Because humans, we love looking at really pretty shiny stuff, but we're very opinionated and drawn to certain pretty shiny things. And sometimes we'll end up actually missing the main mechanics that that are kind of that like back end boring stuff.
Right, but the things that probably matter more
Yeah.
in many ways.
Whoop.
It looks like we might not be sharing. Don't know for sure. Maybe Paco can let us know.
All right, how about that?
Nice. Yep,
Sorry.
I think we're back. Okay.
Got it. Apologies. I clicked the wrong thing.
I have a good question from Zomb Army.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's wondering, when collaborating with other designers, how do you avoid the endless emails with screenshots of artboards?
Oh, yes. And that's actually a very good question. So on our team, we have dedicated design sessions set up almost every day where we go in together and have somebody actually present their work and talk about it and do those live sessions together. Especially now that a lot of us are living in a new remote world, it's a bit harder than it used to be. So like as much as possible, if you can, once it's safe post-COVID, walk over to somebody, sit down and chat with them, like that saves the endless email chains, and also presenting it too. So like the half of design is you actually putting things down on screen. The other half is communicating those ideas to your stakeholders, making sure that they're on the same page, that they understand. And like as much as possible, try to bring folks along for the process so they understand your thinking. And also, if there's ever a design that you don't like, don't show it to them. Because 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the one they pick. It just happens.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So also like controlling that presentation sometimes hopefully can help bring it along so there's not 10,000 emails in a chain. That's where like stuff like I think XD has a really nice option where you can share it and people can comment directly on the design comps.
Yep.
Tools like that are great to bring your clients in so they can see the whole thing. And also then you get the feedback in context. Because sometimes an email with someone saying like, hey, I don't like the color of that button. It's like, oh, what button?
Yeah, I think that the whole share for review thing is really handy. Have you ever played around with like live collaboration tools? I know like XD, you can like be in the document at the same time, or even some other programs like Google Docs and stuff.
Yeah. And I've pretty much like everything I do now is all cloud-based documents so that other people can either in a meeting together or asynchronously comment, make edits, and work together. So I love it. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, because you may end up in a design by committee situation, especially if you have like 5 to 6 people all giving feedback that goes in different directions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for answering that follow-up for me.
Yeah.
We have some new folks in chat. Richard Bortz, thanks for joining us. You're new to XD. This is a great stream for you. You're going to learn some good tips for XD. But also, just a heads up, after this, we're doing something called the XD Daily Creative Challenge, where you can follow along with a host as they show you how to create different types of UI and UX elements. And then you can share your work in Discord and get feedback and sort of, join with others as they do the UX journey as well. So stick around after the show and check that out. And Mary Lindsay, welcome too. Good to see you.
Welcome.
Okay, cool. Looks like we've got it's not called a modal. It's called
a dialogue.
A dialogue.
Yeah, let's see if this works. Yes, it works. Awesome.
Nice.
And all right, so what I did here was, so when you use a repeat grid, it'll group everything together. So I had to double click a couple times to get just this particular component. And then I copied that entire screen over and added this modal up on the top. And then what I need to add inside of here, we'll make this one an OK button. Cancel. And maybe make this a little bit smaller.
Nice. That plesiosaurus. It's the rarest fossil in the whole game.
Oh, yeah?
No, I don't know. I just made that up. It's probably, knowing Animal Crossing, it's probably the one that is worth like 500 bells and you find it every time.
And see, that's a new thing too that I did not realize, that I thought they were all the same price. So, which makes me want to kind of go back now and check. And like, oh, have I been, so I have 2 missing that I've been trying to find for 6 months. So I'm curious if those
do you know
are
what
rare.
they are off the top of your head?
No, I don't. That's my problem, is I need to go back to my museum and go run around and look at every little one to find which one.
Right. Hence what we're doing. That was a silly question. Becca Smith has a good question. Hi, Becca. Thanks for joining. Are product design and UX related? I think physical product when I hear product designer.
Yeah. So interesting history lesson with the names, kind of, or from what I know. So I believe product designer was something that Facebook and some other tech companies in Silicon Valley adopted as a name in the last couple of years to better describe like what a full stack UX designer is. So someone that not only does UX design, but also does UI design, and probably a bit of user testing, and probably a little bit of like business skills as well too. But I also have heard that there is another title called product designer for people that do more industrial design and actual creating of physical products, which I think has been a little confusing and has collided online.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So yeah, when I'm using the term product designer, I'm thinking more so of like someone at a startup that's kind of wearing all of the hats of the different types of designers. And then some larger companies, uh, those are separate roles. So like for UX design, I only do kind of wireframes and logic, but a bit more project management uh, inside of that. And then I have a visual designer that I work with, and they do the typography, color, etc.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I think you had mentioned or kind of like equated or tied together product designer and kind of like full stack designer yesterday.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like full stack plus a bit like needing to know a little bit more about the business.
cool. Christina Elmore is joining us from Illinois. I'm in Ohio. We're not far from one another. That's cool. Becca Smith says, mind blown. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. It's also a good thing to check out. Like if you're new to your career, looking around, look at UX design, UI design, interaction design, product design. There's probably some other titles in there too. I
Oh,
think
I'm sure.
Google calls their designers interaction designers. So yeah, you kind of have to search a bunch of titles when you're job searching.
Job titles are a funny thing.
Yeah.
Like in general, even if you're not in the design space, like two of the same titles can mean vastly different things depending on which company you work for.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't really mean much until, like, let's say you have product designer on your resume. It doesn't really mean much until they interview you and ask you what that means. And then they get a sense of what your experience was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like it's hard and like kind of the criteria that different companies are looking for each type of designer is a little bit different. But yeah, yeah, I generally say like most of my experience has been as like a full stack designer, mostly because companies couldn't afford to hire two people to do UX and UI. But I often get the opportunity to at least pair with designers that are more brand designers and marketing designers. So they're usually there to help me make the typography and the colors and everything look a little bit better.
Sure. I mean, I can't imagine it must be really hard to be the only designer that's responsible both for the experience and the way that, it looks.
Yeah.
I think, that's a really
Yeah.
tough role.
Yeah. And some of the visual designers that I've worked with are so good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's actually really, really, really amazing to get to work with someone that has honed their visual design craft because it just looks cooler than what I can make.
Well, it goes to, there's like, if you're like multitasking on something or if you're trying to do too many things at once, typically you're like the jack of all trades and the master of none. And I think if you can really create the space for yourself to hyper focus on one area, if it's visual design or user experience, then, that's when you become like really great at one specific area. At least I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. Yeah. So I think I'm going to maybe repurpose this screen that we did yesterday for creatures. So I want to potentially, this will be my overlay for here. And I'm going to remove this header. Rename this a creatures grid. I'll pop out of prototyping really quick.
Zombarmi says, I'm the senior principal worldwide full stack design lead instructor.
I love it.
Zombarmi is also the senior worldwide principal cat song evangelist. So,
Nice. Love it. We had a joke once on like a previous mobile team where folks were like, "Oh yeah, I was the CTO once."
Yeah.
Because titles are so different across companies. Like the smaller you get, sometimes the more grandiose some of the titles sound. Uh, and but the bodies of work are different from working at like a big company and a larger initiative. So yeah, it's always it's really funny to see.
I love it. You can be the CTO for one day, probably. Why not? Kathleen says she remembers when designer was just meant for fashion and graphics. And Alan says, I think also product designers are expected to have some of the skills related to product owners or product managers, like being able to articulate the product strategy, which is what
Yeah.
sort of you were getting at too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's totally right, Alan. Um, yeah, both like the product strategy and also sometimes like we would at ZipRecruiter we would look at business metrics as well too. So like not only is this serving the users, but is it serving like the business goals uh, for the company?
Yeah, I think it's cool when you can, I mean, since you said earlier, especially yesterday, like you have a 12-year design career, so you can speak from personal experience to a lot of these things, which I think is super helpful.
It's really crazy seeing where stuff has changed over the last 10 years. And especially how like I'm really curious about what are the next 10 years. Like uh when we started, like mobile didn't exist and wasn't a very big thing, and it is came in, swooped, and completely taken over the industry. So I'm really curious what's going to come next. Like what's going to come in and crush mobile and be the next dominant thing.
Ooh, do you have a hunch? Any ideas?
I don't know. Like there's potential with some AR and VR, but I also feel like that's a little ways off.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem as accessible, to
Yeah,
me. I mean, I'm sure it will be at some point with some device that I can't even conjure up in my head, but
yeah. And then
yeah.
maybe voice UI.
Hmm.
Like working with our assistants like Amazon, Google Voice, etc. Like voice UI, even like just using voice UI to dictate on mobile phones. I love it. I use it all the time. Uh,
I use it a
so
lot too.
yeah,
I was like kind of against it because I was sort of in the camp of like, I don't want Google listening to me all the time. But it's so nice if you like want to listen to music or, whatever, random things you need to put a timer on while you're cooking. You just tell it to do it. And all of a sudden everything's working right.
yeah. I when I got to work on the Xbox 360 Connect launch, there were two main navigation modes. One was with your hand waving around, and the other was with voice.
Mm-hmm.
And like working on it, I always thought that like the hand motion was going to be the cool breakout thing, and it ended up actually being voice. Like that was the most used feature. If you were like over in your kitchen, being able to yell at your TV to have a video start playing. Uh, so like voice actually ended up winning out
That's
years
cool.
ago. Yeah.
It's a good case study. And I mean, voice, I think a lot of the stuff increases accessibility, but I think voice is just like, it's pretty accessible for people that might not be able to do things another way.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Robert says, I'm the only designer at my job and I'm made to do all of the web, print, etc. So Robert is a design superhero.
You are a unicorn and you are
Yes.
well needed, and thank you.
Yeah, endangered species. Um,
Yeah.
Wade says, I'm often the president of ice cream because Barmy says, if you're self-employed, you can have any title.
Nice. I love it.
Oh, I love it too.
All right. So I'm going to see if I was able to connect this up correctly. So I jumped over into prototyping, and it's super easy just to click on a component and grab the little arrow here, and then you just tell it where you want it to go. So I connected, sure, we'll do fossils to this one. I connected creatures to this tab. And in this one, so I figured out what I was doing wrong yesterday. So the way that you want to set stuff up with the scroll view is we've got our header up at the top, which I will group, name this header, and then you want to click this fix position when scrolling over on the right.
Got it.
And then same for the footer items. I'll group these two together. Fix position. And then I also moved them up to, there's a little tiny tool right here that is the breakpoint for the scroll. So I pulled the two UI items just so they sit kind of the bottom at it. And yes, it works.
Nice.
Great. Cool. So this allows me to have a scroll in the middle while keeping the header and the footer pinned.
Cool.
Yay.
Nice job. Val thinks that brain implants are the next big thing, which sounds wild, but I don't know if you saw like Elon's Neuralink stuff, but they did some really wild stuff with, I think it was a chimpanzee brain recently. They
Oh,
implanted
wow.
like a chip into its brain, and then they were able to give it, they basically allowed the chimpanzee to play Pong like on a screen just
Oh,
using its
wow.
thoughts, like it wasn't using a controller.
No, I haven't seen that, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I
It
have
really could like open up the
yeah,
door for like talking about accessibility,
hugely. Yeah.
like it's really cool.
Yeah, I have a friend who a couple of years ago made an art piece for Burning Man that used a like a head scanning little headset,
Hmm.
and depending on what you were thinking, you could change colors of an LED screen that was available. So you like had this headset on and would stare,
Whoa.
and the colors would change.
That's really cool. Did it just sit like on top of your head and like
Yeah. Yeah, it was like
what?
almost like a little pair of headphones. Uh,
That is wild.
so amazing. Just like really
Yeah.
fun technology.
Roy's back from yesterday. Welcome back, Roy. No problem. We're just designing more experiences for this companion app. So if you have questions and need to get caught up, feel free to ask. But you're not too late by any means.
Awesome. So it looks like this is kind of working. Oh, but I lost a little tiny bar here for my. Oh, come on.
Oh, nice.
You need to come into here.
That was a
There we
gamer.
go.
That was gamer precision. What you just did.
It's like it's hanging out inside there. And actually, I might make this a little bit bigger just because I know on the stream it might be a little bit harder to see. So we're gonna make this one 6. And we'll make this one 6 as well too. And scoot it up. Now I will admit I'm looking at this. This is a sketch. Like a couple things make me a little uncomfortable. I don't know actually if I like this tab navigation,
Hmm.
particularly if it's a feature that I want to be able to support having subsections for insects, fish, and sea creatures. Um, and adding in additional furniture and clothing, I think would break that pattern. Uh, Something I'm not going to worry about right now for the stream, but if this was a product that I was designing, I might step back and retake a look at kind of the navigation because having the double tabs here can start to get to be a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you don't have to solve it now, but I'm curious, do you have like any like techniques you're thinking of in the back of your head that might solve a situation like that a little bit better?
yeah, I'd probably go back to the drawing board with the information architecture
Hmm.
and play around with a couple different versions.
Cool.
And just like do a couple wild sketches to see if there's something else that ends up feeling a little bit better.
Awesome.
Yeah, more
Do
often
you
than not, to or more often than not, the like first design that you do is probably going to be okay, but in the fourth and fifth and the other designs are where you find some more of the exciting stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, there are lots of design iterations, right? And I
Mhm.
think sometimes I'll look at like a newer app that I can tell has been built by like maybe a startup or something, and it looks exactly like something else. Like
Mhm.
you're like, oh wow, you just based this off of whatever it was. And in a way, like that's kind of smart because people already are used to that other thing, and you've already kind of built it on the back of a bunch of experience and time and
Mhm.
effort and testing. But at the same time, it isn't exactly innovative. It might not be custom tailored to your specific needs.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a double-edged sword. Like that sometimes can be a really good corner to cut, especially if you're working with a startup. Like
Hmm.
if something is working for Facebook, it may mean that they have generally done a good job usability testing it and seeing if it works for their user base. So like sometimes it's okay. Like not everything has to be brand new and crazy new interactions. Uh, but you'd also have to remember that their user base is different from your user base. Um,
Totally.
so what might work for them may not work for you. So like it's really important, especially like once you get an app out there and launch it, to like take a look at the analytics, see how people are actually going through the application, read the feedback. That's one of the great and sometimes terrible things about working in mobile applications is because you publish in the App Store, uh, people can go in and add comments and complain about everything and all things. So they either can be
Yeah.
your best accolades or they'll rip you apart in the comments. And like that's something that like we don't have an ecosystem like that for websites.
Right.
So like you can't go to a website and be like, this is terrible, the UI is bad, it's not giving me what I want. So in the mobile app land, you also have to be mindful of like the feedback that you're getting from commenters, uh, and make sure that you keep an eye on that and address those things.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I never thought about that, but the comment section is a real thing for mobile apps.
Yeah.
It's like the comment section on a YouTube video, so sort of similar.
Yeah. And your organic like star rating, the like 5 star, 4 star,
Hmm.
that impacts where you show up in the list of results as well too. So the higher your score, the higher you're up in the Google results, the more likely more people will find your app. Bad scores, you'll probably start drifting down as well too. So
Cool.
especially in mobile apps, we usually have to keep a close eye on it to make sure that uh, that organic stuff is working in our favor and not against us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Some feedback loops for sure,
Yeah,
either pushing it up or down.
yeah, hugely.
Bernadette, welcome back. You were here yesterday. Thanks for coming back for part two. Val has a question for you.
Yeah.
Um, if it comes to the point where your client wants a feature implemented that is great in theory but not in practice, what do you do?
Ooh. Um. So couple avenues here. One, try to do a little lightweight user testing on it. Uh, And oh, and I think somebody asked this earlier and I may not have covered it well. User testing doesn't have to be a big giant thing. You can create a little clickable prototype like this in a day and uh, maybe post COVID walk around the office and show it to some people. Go walk out on a street somewhere, maybe post COVID, and show it to people, or even like email. If you have like any sort of mailing list of like, okay, I know
Mm-hmm.
these are some of our folks that have given us feedback. See if you can recruit them for sessions, and just get it in front of people because it's so much powerful to have one of your users say, "This sucks. I don't like it." Than it coming directly from you. Uh, so like I always like to lean on having some sort of either research or if there's any data in the analytics that I can lean on. That's a lot more convincing to clients than this isn't going to work because I think so.
Yep. I recently did some user testing it was on usertesting.com, and it was wild. Like I sent it out on accident. Like I set up this user test and I was trying to just figure out how it worked. And somehow it got sent out to like 15 people. And within 10 minutes or like 30 minutes, I had 15 really insightful tests where people had gone through this experience and given me their impressions and made some suggestions. And it literally took, like you said, like maybe in total less than 2 hours to do the
Yeah.
whole thing. Like that's pretty amazing that we can do that nowadays.
Yeah, it's huge. We use user testing in my job as well too, and it's really nice to be able to just have access to folks from worldwide and being able to make just a reel of video clips to show to clients is so much more powerful. It's also a great thing to invite the developers along as well too, so that they can see kind of the feedback. There's a really good book by Erica Hall called Just Enough Research, which I have here. Um,
Nice.
this is if you're interested in learning a little bit more about user research. Definitely recommend checking this out. It's a pretty small, lightweight book, and she's got some great techniques, especially when you're working at startups or if you're the only designer on a team, for ways that you can integrate user research without it taking up like months and weeks and time.
Cool. Something I really admire about you is that you're like pretty far along and well like experienced in your design career, but you've never like stopped learning. Like you've already made several book suggestions and you're like always reading and trying to learn. And I think that's a really valuable lesson, especially I know some of some of the folks watching the live stream are probably more on the beginner side of things than you are. Just like, even if you're done with school, just continue reading. Like, you're never really out of school. You should always be polishing up those skills.
Absolutely. Learning does not stop. Like,
Yep.
and every day I will be learning something new and something different and new techniques. So it's great, like, not only to kind of read, keep up on blogs, and then also talk with other designers, talk with other designers at other teams, see how they're doing stuff and what you can learn from them. And think about, even in your own jobs, like, what do you want to learn now, that you can take into your career as you go to the next position and the next position.
Yep. I think that's a great way to look at it. And
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite parts about like design conferences, or like, pre-COVID
Yeah.
things where you could like take a class from like another, let's say, product designer that works at a company that you really admire. And now all of a sudden you get a glimpse into like a process that you've never or might not have ever been exposed to, which is so valuable.
It's so great. Yeah. And stay in contact with folks too that you've worked with in the past. Like, they're going to be your best allies going forward. I made friends working at Xbox years ago, and those relationships, I still exist to this day. The design industry is actually a lot smaller than you would expect. And even the gaming industry is also pretty tiny as well too. So, like, build good relationships with people, keep in touch. And like, you never know what's going to happen over time.
Yeah, thanks. That's really good insights. Hey, Kara, thanks for joining us. I'm glad that you were able to catch the XD stream. Let us know if you have any questions or if we can get you caught up to speed. But in short, we're working on some different experiences where you can visualize some of the items that are in Animal Crossing using a companion app. Yeah, Laura chimed in and said the great thing about design is you can never get bored.
Yeah.
Sort of sums up what we're talking about pretty succinctly.
Well, and I love, of course, like, we did yesterday's live stream, and then all night I was thinking about like different ideas and like, oh, what if I did it this way? And oh, what about this one? So like, I love that like energy that you get at the beginning of a new project.
That's a good sign that you enjoy what you're doing too.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it when you're not working, then you're probably in the right path.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I've got this prototype kind of set up to where, so we'll have this fossils page, and then I can come over to the creatures page, ignore the fact that all of the data is more fossils. We'll just pretend that that's different for now. And then on the fossils page, I can actually click inside of here and read a little bit more about the plesiosaurus. And
awesome.
Something of this weight is really all you need for user testing. It doesn't need to. The more realer it looks, the better. But even like just doing kind of a sketchy wireframe is enough to get some early feedback.
Yep. And you can, I don't know, user testing's a platform, and I'm sure other methods are a way where you can kind of guide it in a way. So maybe with this, it would be less about like the design, like the visual design, and more about what do you think about this part of the experience? How does this feel to you? And then you can get some insights that are just totally independent from the way that it looks, hopefully.
Yeah. I dropped a profile icon in here when I was thinking about what to build for this application, mostly because assuming there would need to be some sort of backend system that connects into my Nintendo account. So likely that this app would need some sort of profile. So just putting that space in here without like going super deep on it. Yeah, let's see.
We just got a whole bunch of questions, so I'm gonna let you keep going, and
I'll
interject as you're working. But Roy's wondering, how do we keep up our energy if you're working on a project and you're close to your deadline and you're just feeling burnout?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I tend to I have pretty strict deadlines for myself for when I stop during the day. And it's particularly important right now, that especially since we're in kind of COVID times and we're video conferencing and not in person yet. So I do a little work at the beginning to make sure that I don't get to that super burnt out stage. But sometimes too, it's also important just to go take a walk. to go, like go outside, go exercise, go bike ride, go for a run, like do something that's not the design work. I find actually that when it comes down to like executing on some designs, it'll come really fast if I'm in the right mode. And if not, I'll have a really hard time. So like sometimes it takes getting away from the design itself and taking a little break so that you can come back and just crank out that last little bit.
I think that's such good advice. The thing that popped into my head immediately was the same thing, like step away from the screens, go outside, get some fresh air, get some sunshine, hopefully you can try to find some type of outdoor hobby that you enjoy and yeah, reset your batteries in a way.
Yeah, yeah, I love that analogy. We were talking at work about having an analog hobby. So like having another hobby that like is painting or woodworking or like doing something that kind of helps with those creative the creative drive, but it's not necessarily a like on a computer screen hobby.
Yep, big time. Cool. Thanks for answering that. I know you're working through your stuff, so I'm going to keep asking them as we go. Oh, just another reminder for folks watching. Thanks, Val. In about 20 minutes, 20-ish minutes, we're going to do something called the Artist Spotlight, where we're going to show off someone's work from the community. So if you would like to be featured in an Artist Spotlight, or you have a designer you think would be great to be featured, put their name in the form. It's right in the Artist Spotlight tab right above chat on Behance. S. Kunamili is wondering what some of the main differences are between iOS and material design in terms of elements and layouts.
Yeah. So one of the big things is Android has a back button, which changes some of the navigation patterns a little bit, or there's a back button and an up button. And actually, I will come down here. This is probably a good example. And the back button and the up button have different navigation patterns. So that's definitely one thing to look out for. The back button is like your incremental, every single screen will take you back. And an up is like a shortcut to take you up into different kind of main sections of the app. So just having that physical button, which doesn't exist on iOS, can make some differences. There are a lot of patterns that are different.
Yeah, I'm sure if you dug into this, you could do like a whole,
Yeah,
like a whole lesson on a whole presentation.
Yeah, a whole 2 hour. I'd say like generally, like maybe 60 to 80% is the same. One of the big things about Android as well too is because there are so many different Android devices that you need to support. There are literally thousands out there that it's almost a little bit easier to think of designs in terms of being responsive. That's like one thing that I just like definitely want to let people know. Like, be patient as a designer when you're working with developers, because the wide breadth of screen sizes and device capabilities and how fast they are that the development team has to deal with when we're building is just crazy. So the designs may not be able to be pixel perfect. And you just kind of have to make it responsive and work for as many use cases as possible.
That's a really great tip. I think we were talking a little bit about that yesterday too. And I think that's, one of those things that you really only learn with some experience. You have to design and have to keep working at it, working with teams.
Yeah. And I recommend ask your developers that you're working with, have a conversation with them and ask them to explain the constraints that they're coming up against or the reasons why they can or can't do things, so that you pick that up as you go along. Because then you'll start seeing threads for the navigation patterns.
Never stop learning. See?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And learn by osmosis.
Yeah. Ling Tua was wondering, is the text too close to the edge? She always has a hard time deciding if that's the case.
Oh. So maybe some of these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more less of a critique on your design, but more of a not really sure how to handle that on their own designs.
Yeah, I'd say on average, I probably put about 16 pixels on either side.
Okay.
This one actually might be a little bit closer, sometimes 8 if it's yeah, that looks like it's a little bit closer. So depending on the design, um, you can actually get pretty close to the edge, but like anywhere between 8 and 16
Cool.
should be okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
What's more important is to try to make sure that the it doesn't drop below 12 generally on mobile devices. So I try to keep everything above 12 points so it's a little bit easier for folks to read. Um, and then
Cool.
also for localization and because users can adjust the font size on their devices, making sure that when you're building components to have the text box span the entire width of the container it's inside of.
Yeah, I think that's a really great tip. Ling says, cool, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Alan Shin has a fun question for you.
Yeah.
What is one thing about the Animal Crossing UX that you would fix if you could? So in the game itself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So one of my pain points is so right now when you want to craft a piece of furniture or an item, you can only do it one at a time. So if I want to make 4 seats for a table, I have to go through the process once. And it's really cute because there's this great animation and they pound on the table and it's like it's a fun moment. But if I needed to make 7 of those, it's probably going to be 20 minutes.
Yep.
So I would love to be able to do some sort of like bulk crafting.
I'm right there with you. I like to fish, and fishing with bait is way easier. But making bait is the same process of crafting anything else. And so if you want like 50 baits, you have to do that thing 50 times. And it's just not, it's pretty painful. That's my least favorite part about the game, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for asking that question, Alan.
Yeah.
That was
Thanks,
fun.
Alan. The another thing that I kind of talked about a little bit yesterday, a couple of the areas of opportunity that I was looking at. Another thing that would be phenomenal would be the ability to edit what's so in the game you have a backpack, which is like your storage on you as you're running around the island.
Mm-hmm.
And then often I end up going home and I have to dump everything out of that into my home storage. And I would love in a mobile app to be able to, like, whenever I wasn't playing the game or if I was out and about, being able to like move stuff from my bag into my home inventory. Which is probably kind of a crazy technical problem that would make some developers cry, but also it would just be a huge quality of life improvement.
Yeah, do it for the gamers.
Yeah.
Bernadette has a question about accessibility. Bernadette says, I have cerebral palsy. Some games are really hard for me to play. Do game developers ask about accessibility when they create UXs?
Oh, yes. Though probably not as much as we should. And I think UX design and game design in general could probably do a better job of addressing accessibility. I think there are some really good resources out there that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. There's like a coalition of game design accessibility folk. Shoot, if the name comes back to me, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, let us know. I would love to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something that like the industry has done kind of an okay job, but I definitely think they could be a lot better at.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know if you've watched that documentary on Netflix called Crip Camp.
No, I haven't.
I highly recommend it if you haven't yet, or anyone watching. It's done really well, and I think Adobe actually helped in some way produce it, which I found out later. But that's neither here nor there. That the documentary itself really opened up my eyes to some accessibility, really the struggle of accessibility, and having a disability like in a world that wasn't built for people that have disabilities. You should, I don't know, I think we all as designers and people should like really try to inform ourselves on what that life is like, so that we can create experiences that can be accessed by everybody. So I'm right there with you,
Absolutely.
Bernadette.
Yeah.
And thanks for bringing up the question.
Thank you for bringing that up as well too. Gus, I did send you a message with the website. It's actually gameaccessibilityguidelines.com.
Oh, cool.
Um, and
I'll
it's
share it in chat.
a coalition of studios committing to making games more inclusive. And I'm really glad you brought that question up as well too, because it's that we've found in the industry, if you create features to help folks that are like have a permanent or a temporary disability, it generally actually benefits everyone else. So like some games found that having captions up as a default, like most people left it on, and people actually enjoy having the captions there. So there's a lot of really good techniques you can use to make things a bit easier for folks with disabilities to play games that actually end up benefiting everybody else in the long run.
Right. It's kind of funny how it works that way. Like you would think like that's how we should design everything instead of the other way around, which is like you
Yeah,
design it that only works for folks that are like fully capable of all of the things that you think they can be capable of, and then
yeah,
hope that other folks can like adopt to accept it. Yeah, I think that if there's a paradigm shift on its head, that could be really cool.
absolutely.
And Escunamili, it's called Crip Camp. It's on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix. And it won a couple awards. And it's really interesting. It basically chronicles a group of people that all attended the same camp together when they were kids, that then were like the impetus behind the Disabilities Act in the United States and like all of the reform that came with it. And it sort of chronicles the struggle of the whole process. And I just found it extremely eye-opening and inspirational.
Sweet. So I might try really quick. I'm gonna make a new page for maybe another feature that I can try to prototype out. Um, so I'm gonna make this. So right now I'm just editing this state so it's a little bit brighter for the one that's selected.
Cool.
When I'm at the visual design stage, I would probably choose a color. But for now, hopefully this is easy to see on the stream. But there's just a slight color difference between these two.
Yeah, I think that would come through if you were playing with the prototype. You could see that shift happen.
Yeah. So what I want to do actually, so in a magical world,
Hey, Kara, congratulations. Kara graduated from a UX boot camp today.
nice, congratulations,
Really proud of you. That's
welcome.
cool. That's a big accomplishment. We're looking forward to what you create. And if you create some projects, you might already have them on your Behance page. Make sure to share your page with us for the Artist Spotlight, which is happening in 8 minutes, and we can give you a shout out for all the cool work that you created.
So one of the other features that I want to play around with a little bit that I figured we'll try to just do a little bit of a comp here is the dodo codes. So in Animal Crossing, when you want someone to come visit your island or you want other people to, you can often set up a dodo code. So if they have that code, they can come visit you.
Cool.
And one thing I noticed is like myself and my friends, I would walk up and take a picture with my phone of the screen. And we would actually send that to each other back in messages, literally versus typing out the code itself. So I thought it would be fabulous in a mobile app to just, if in theory a mobile app was connected to your dodo code, so when you're at the airport, you can like have this appear on your phone, and we'll make a menu to where it's like super easy to send inside of your messages, etc.
I think that's such a good idea. We need to visit more islands.
Yeah.
I don't use my Nook miles very often. You know, like the things that'll go to the random items, the random islands.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, I saved up like a whole lot, and so did Kathleen. And we were hunting for like villagers, some cat villagers that are elusive and hard to find. And I don't know how many tickets she got. If she's still in the chat, she can say. but it was a lot. It was probably like 150,000 Nook miles, and
Oh, wow.
we didn't find any. It was such a bummer.
Oh, no.
Maybe that's where I got to go to those websites where you can trade villagers for
Yeah.
fancy goods.
Let's see. So the way that I'm thinking about this is we'd probably have some sort of card here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to pull this image in.
Are the drop shadows standard on like for this design, just as part of that dialogue?
Yeah. This one actually comes with the material design.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, that's the iPhone one. And material design actually has its own default set of elevation. So I'm going to cheat and throw an image in. So this is not technically a wireframe, but whatever. I want to make something cute.
Yeah, let's make it pretty.
Let's see. Oop. And I'm going to just make this a little bit transparent. See a little bit. And then I'm actually going to come over to the material design icons. So this is a website that Google has set up of their own icon packs. And generally, this is one of the easier resources that I use for picking up icons. Chat.
Cool.
My only complaint is they change the name of things every once in a while.
Yeah,
It makes it a little bit hard.
Yeah, you'd think they'd have like a nice filter at the top or something to.
You know, they used to. So I'm going to try this one and I'll download, excuse me, download an SVG.
So, Ling is wondering what material design is.
Material design is a design language that Google has set up for, I think it's web and mobile as well. So there's a lot of, it's the typography, the structure, the framework. It's kind of just like your base library that you can start with on Android. And you can also use it in web as well too.
Yeah, I think of it as sort of when you open up a phone and you're like, oh, this is an Android phone. That's the reason why.
So I think here, gonna do something where we'll make like a fake button.
And Bernadette, you're wondering how to join the Adobe Academy. Maybe Kara, if you don't mind providing Bernadette with some materials, that would be awesome. If not, I can follow up with you afterwards.
Let's see, for now, we'll make you smaller. Oops.
Nice.
So imagine that this would have a couple options. So it's still a little too big. Centered.
Nice. Yep,
Maybe.
So this is for Android and there is an iOS equivalent. And I think actually Val has some links to both of them that she can share in chat here in a second.
Yeah.
And then you can, check out the resources. Basically, the documents they provide give you all the assets you need to get started on really any sort of app design.
It's Messenger. WhatsApp. I really hate to use all Facebook properties, but those are the ones that I think of. Actually, here, let's do email. There we go.
Nice.
There's something different. Like I
It works.
don't want to give Facebook the extra credit, but oh well. So yeah,
This is coming along quick.
yeah. So imagine that like this would just do something super simple, like popping up the like the code in a way that when I go to SMS this, it could hopefully send a nice little clipped picture of this with some artwork in the background.
Cool.
So it's easy to send to folks, but still has a little bit more like Animal Crossing personality in it.
Yeah, I think it's great. Okay, just a reminder, sometime pretty soon we can do our artist spotlight. So whenever you're ready, just let me know. You can finish up what you're working on.
Cool. Actually, now it's perfect.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Let's do it.
I'll pull up my screen real quick. One moment. Okay. Awesome. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not muted. I'm not muted, right? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is our artist spotlight for today. Maya is someone from the community that shared, she either shared her profile or someone else shared it. And then we've just selected it to be the highlight for today. So if you're watching right now and you'd like to be highlighted, we'd love to highlight your work. You don't have to be super far along in your career. You don't have to be working on groundbreaking projects. It's just a chance for us to get some eyeballs on the work that you're creating and then hopefully allow you to get a little bit of momentum. So Maya, thanks for sharing your work. And we're really excited to take a look at some of your projects today. So yeah, I'll just sort of like pilot through the page here and let people know about, Maya and who she is. So it's her Behance page. You can find it here. It's the URL. Or you can just look up Maya Zlatarska. Hopefully I said that correctly on Behance. Go ahead and give her a follow. Okay, I'm not logged in right now. Sorry, I'll follow you later. So Maya's a graphic designer, 3 years of experience. A year ago, her focus shifted to UI and UX design. Ever since that discovery, all their energy has been dedicated to that career switch. So it looks like a lot of Maya's projects, excuse me, were actually created as part of some courses. So Shape Me is one of her clients, and then these two were created through a Coursera course. So great work with this.
Awesome. It's a really nice, I love the case studies as well too.
Yeah, me too. I really appreciate, like we were talking about yesterday, projects that kind of tell the story. They let you know like what their process was, what they were thinking, why they made the decisions they made.
Hugely. Yeah, it's really good, especially for your portfolio, to have at least a couple case studies in there. Because the thing that hiring managers are looking for is that, like, how do you think? How do you solve problems? What the process is. So it's a really great way to take people on the journey that you went on together.
Yeah, right on. This is great. I like your icons a lot too.
Yeah, surprisingly, more of design is actually the presenting and the pitching than you would expect, especially as you get further on in your career. It's a lot more like presentations and slide decks. So this is really good practice.
Yeah, this is really cool. So this is sort of like we were talking earlier, you had like a very basic sitemap in your project. And this is like kind of the same idea. And then wireframes.
Fabulous.
Really cool.
And I really appreciate how they put it up to where I can see all the wireframes and all of the steps, especially when you're a hiring manager looking through portfolios. You really want to see like nice big pictures that clearly show all of the different stages. Even if it's not as fancy looking as what the final visual designs do, like this is the type of stuff that UX designers eat up. Oh, great job.
Got some cool mood boards.
Nice.
Some very trendy photos here.
Yeah.
Making me hungry. Oh, cool. And there's a link to the full mood board on Pinterest.
Oh, nice.
Which is neat. I think that's a nice touch. Style guide. with some blobs. Could have been made by the
Nice.
blob maker.
Blobs
That's
for the
very
win.
cool. Do you have a favorite typeface, favorite font?
Ooh, no. I end up actually defaulting back to Helvetica, just because it's lightweight, it's free mostly, and it's available on most platforms. Uh, so I end up going the kind of utilitarian UX designer route of making it easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you don't have to get too fancy. Sorry, I got a dog underneath me making noises. That's Kashi, everyone, and I don't
Here you
know. Hopefully he's okay. I think he's okay now.
go.
Um, but
Yeah, and this is a really great presentation of the work as well too. Like love seeing big pictures, and even just kind of animating through this is really nice to see the the work alive.
yeah, yeah, very cool. Yeah, really great work. I'll go back and give this a like once I can log in. But thank you so much, Maya, for sharing your work with us. Let's go ahead and check out one more really quickly. Do you want to look at Gooby or Shape Me?
Oh, what's the difference between the two shape maze?
So, um, this is a UX mobile app for clients, and this is for therapists. So it looks like there's
Oh, cool.
two faces of the app.
Yeah, maybe let's check out the client one
Okay.
real quick. That's a really cool project for her to have in her portfolio as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So because she got to work on both the business to consumer and also the business to business side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Especially, I don't know how many projects Maya's done for UI UX design, but it looks like this is the only one that isn't marked as like being part of a Coursera course or something. And so for this to be actual work that you got to do right away, yeah, that's super valuable for the future of your career path. But again,
Yeah.
I think the layout's really easy to follow. The colors are nice.
The
It all
bullets are
makes
great.
sense.
We love bullets.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're working on case studies too, don't feel like you have to write a giant novel. Like bullets and kind of high level presentation is totally, totally okay.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. And I even appreciate the way that she points to a particular area and kind of calls your attention to it and the reasons why.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's great to kind of guide the person that's reading your portfolio through kind of exactly what you want them to look at and see.
Cool. One thing I would like to know on projects and even on your last one, I'm curious if you illustrated all of your own components and icons or whether you used a resource for this. That's just
I
always I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, I use another resource. My illustration and my icon skills are not great. Um, so like at some startups, we've sometimes we'll use the material icons because there's a wonderful set. iOS
Mhm.
also has their own set of icons that you can tap into as well. And then sometimes some companies will hire a freelancer who specializes in iconography to create custom icon packs. And I've worked at other places that we had like a specific designer that was hired to create the icons for us.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, it's an art to do icons. I totally like empathize with folks that do it. That's not my skill set, so I definitely am like, I'll pass.
Yeah, I mean, you have to convey a lot of information with a very small amount of real estate, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's cool.
no, these visual
But
designs are beautiful.
yeah,
So
Maya,
these are really
that's
nice.
very, very well done and presented very well. So, oh, cool. It looks like I'm following somehow. I'm not logged in, but I'll make sure that I follow you here as soon as I can. And yeah, thanks again for sharing. If you're watching the live stream right now, either on YouTube or on Behance, and you would like to get featured, all you have to do is just share a link to your page or one of your friends' pages using the form that's right above chat on behance.net/Adobe Live. And then you could be the next person that's highlighted. We'll just hype up your work, follow you, encourage other people to follow your work, and just hopefully, like I said earlier, give you a little bit of momentum on your design journey. Cool. All right. Do you want to hop back into designs and finish things out? It looks like we got about 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, folks.
Yeah.
Sweet. So let's see. I've got this little guy inside of here, which has just got a super quick kind of example of what a dodo code could look like. I want to check really quick. I previously installed the material design light theme library. So if you go into plugins and manage plugins, searching inside of here, I found there's actually a couple plugins already created for material design. So I'm going to come back into here and see if there are any icons in here that I can borrow from. Yes, there are.
Nice.
So I'm going to grab a social share icon. And please be, well, okay. What I wanted was an email icon. But for now, we'll do a heart.
That works.
Yeah.
Hearts are always good.
Make it fancy.
I think XD at one point had an Easter egg where you could do like the greater than sign and then 3, and then it would automatically turn it into a heart in a text box.
Oh, that is awesome.
I don't know if it's still there or not, but it was there. So I couldn't read chat while we were doing that spotlight, but Maya was in chat while we were looking at her profile.
Oh, awesome.
And everyone was saying, Maya, this is so great. So Maya, thanks for joining the chat. It's really nice to have you here. Yeah, all awesome feedback. And she did say I try to do more complex icons herself. So some of those more complex icons looks like she actually did the icon work as well, which is very cool.
Awesome. It's beautiful, amazing work that I totally admire everyone's icon skills. Like, please, we need more.
Big time.
Oh. Okay, now I'm going to try to see if I can get, there we go. So, let's see if this will let me do it. I want to connect this screen to this one. So grabbing in the navigation on here to get it to come over here. And then I will do the same over here to connect it.
S. Kunamili is wondering who's mainly responsible when it comes to making designs responsive. Is it the devs or the UI designers?
Ooh, it's a team effort. I would say the designers should at least be definitely thinking about a couple breakpoints if possible and how they want stuff to flow. But with the understanding that you can't really account for every single use case. So something that has worked well for me is like when I'm in the design stage, I try to account for a couple of cases, especially some of the itty bitty tiny Android phones that are like this big. So having general rules set up for how it should respond, but then you never really know until we start building stuff. So it's also super important as you pair with your developers as they're building things to check in with them and see like, how is this working? Run it across a couple different devices and test it out. Because as you're building it, you might find additional things. So both people should be thinking about it and then work together to come up with a good solution.
Cool. Thanks for answering that. I know it's complex, but yeah. Ling guessed in chat that it would be both.
Yeah. Yes.
So good guess.
No, the answer is everyone. Yes.
The answer is yes.
Oh, sweet. Yay. Okay, this works. Cool. So I connected. Oh, well, that's wrong. But I think I see what I did wrong.
Jessica T, while you're playing with that, Jessica T is wondering if there are other creatives that you admire or get inspiration from.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Big shout out to a couple of my teammates, Nicholas Tisch and Jacob Grube and Sasha. I'm going to butcher your last name. I'm sorry. We have some amazing visual designers that I get to work with and pair with. I love, since a lot of my work is UX design and more wireframe focused, being able to pair with visual designers that just do amazing, beautiful stuff that looks really cool is so much fun and empowering, and makes my life easier. So like, yeah, just big shout out to my visual design colleagues.
Cool. That's great. It seems like you really admire folks that have like that possess skills that you may not, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's huge. It's so nice to be able to partner with somebody else who could do the job that much better. So that together you can create an amazing product.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and Bernadette, I hope you do get some information for that for EU and UK. I'll poke around a little bit, and if I get some more information, I'll send you a message on Behance. Cool. Okay, sorry. We'll get back to your prototype.
All right, so I was just trying to figure out. I think I have it connected correctly, but something was funky. Ah, here it is. Oops. Delete that one. There we go.
Nice.
You come here. Then on here, delete you. That was just a user error.
Oh, I see. There we go.
All right, catalog goes over there. Goes over there. All right, now that should work. So Dodo codes, there we go. Sweet. Dodo code, I could share this out. Oh no. Ah, and this connected to the wrong one. Delete. Want you.
Come on.
Ah.
Sometimes you just got to cheer on XD, right?
Yeah.
Come on, XD.
There we go.
Nice.
I think I was accidentally grabbing the edge of the Dodo codes, so that's where.
I see.
There we go. Cool. All
Nice.
right. Yay. So it's not the like fanciest design in the world, but we've got a little ability up here to kind of toggle between fossils and creatures.
I really love it.
Ignore that those are obviously not creatures. And then hop back over to fossils, and then I can actually go in between the different tabs, check out my Dodo code, and I could share my Dodo code, and then come back and look at my items.
Cool.
Let's see. Okay, this is the plesiosaurus. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's looking really cool.
Not too bad for like, and you can tell like doing little lightweight interactions like this is you can make it super quick and get it in front of people faster. Like the best thing to do is like don't worry about making it pixel perfect or like a massive large thing. Like definitely go for simple and sharing it out and getting feedback early and often.
Yeah. So actually, Kathleen said something in chat earlier that I thought was really, really nice when we were talking about like facing a deadline and feeling burnout. She said sometimes she just feels like done is better than perfect. And I think that's like really important when you're working through these projects. It's like,
absolutely.
Just have something that you can test. You can iterate on it, like you've already said. Sometimes it takes 5-6 attempts until you get what you're looking for.
Yeah. And that's why it's super important, especially in like your product development process, to make sure. I love working at places where we'll ship and then we constantly iterate and test and make changes because everyone else is going to use your app in a completely different way. They're going to break it. They're going to find random stuff that you didn't think about. And so the best thing that you can do is lean on your users or the players or the folks that are using your products and like learn from them and how they use it.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. So just a reminder, we've got about 5 minutes left, a little more than that. So if anyone's watching and you've been holding on to a question and you haven't asked it yet, this would be a great time because this is actually the end of our second part, which means it's the end of the series and we might not get Noah back on the stream for a little bit. So jump in the chat, say hi, and ask your question while you got a little bit of time left.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. Yeah. And just to like a kind of quick review, we hooked up a little Animal Crossing app with a couple features inside of it. So mostly focusing on creating, using components to create repeatable items. going back and forth with a little bit of lightweight prototyping to go in between some of the tabs. And then adding in a couple modals.
Nice. Or dialogues, some might
And,
say.
or dialogues. Yeah. It even catches me up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would have said modals before today.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
That looks really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes left. I don't know. We could play around with some more of the designs if you want. I don't see any questions in chat yet.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yeah, or I could talk a little bit about the kind of next steps that I would probably do if this was a real product is I would take this, maybe use a platform like usertesting.com, or maybe just even set up a video chat with someone and give this in, like send them a share link so that they can play with the interactive prototype. And like just like a high level overview of what user testing is usually it's best to set people up and have them do tasks. So like, for example, like, hey, can you find where you would find creatures in the app, or where would you go into the app to share dodo code? So it's a little bit better to kind of present open-ended questions and have them speak back to you about why they went to certain places, and where they would expect it to be. Because you'll notice that everyone will kind of organize things differently and have different opinions about where stuff should go. And so you might be biased as a designer or a developer or a creative person. Yeah.
I found it really hard when I was doing user testing to write questions that weren't leading in some way because, like you said, I had an opinion on how it should work, but I didn't want to write that. Like I wanted them to tell me what their opinion was. So it did take a little bit of time to make sure that, my tasks didn't have any bias in them.
Yeah, no, and it can be really hard too, especially when you're like watching someone and like to not be like, it's the button over there, please click it.
Exactly.
So it can definitely be a little bit difficult, but it's so important for you to not bias folks and to just like observe and watch and see. Yeah.
I have a question from Jessica about Adobe Max 2020. Did you catch any of the most recent Adobe Max?
I unfortunately did
okay
not. Yeah, I didn't for 2020. I got the opportunity to go in 2019 and it was amazing. Cool. So I got to go pre-pandemic and see folks in person.
Yeah, that was in LA, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So it was close by here. One of the amazing takeaways from it for me was just learning about other creative industries outside of UX design. So listening to Ron Howard speak about filmmaking, and listening to other folks talk about illustration and arts. I find sometimes it's very easy to get stuck in like the little screens and the small details. And it's so important as a creative person to like resurface and come back up and look at what other industries are doing, just to like feed your soul. And that is something that helps with burnout as well too.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I was actually at that Max as well. And I think the special thing for me, at least I'll speak to 2020 Max, was that it was the first time ever where like Max was pretty much democratized. Like it was free and you could just tune in. It was totally digital. And while it didn't have that whole like in-person component, which I think is still really valuable for many reasons, it was really cool to just see like a much larger group of creatives like jump on the opportunity to like collaborate and learn new skills and to sign up for workshops. So for me, like that whole experience, it wasn't one specific moment, but it was more just the idea of it all being digital and free was really, really cool for me. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that again this year. I'm not sure exactly what the plans will be, but I imagine there's going to be another digital component to it.
Yeah. And I think some other conferences are going digital this year as well too. So like that's a good reminder to like let folks know those things are happening and tune in and watch, especially as they're virtual this year, because they're so valuable and so much you can learn.
Yep. Well, cool. I think most people in the chat are saying, Oh, well, Kara wants Max IRL so bad,
Yeah.
but we're starting to wind down here. So I guess in our last few moments, I just want to thank you again, Noelle, for being with us and like sharing your process, but also like opening up to questions around your career and advice on how to become a better designer and a better person. So yeah, just really thank you for your time over the last 2 days.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining and for all the questions. Really appreciate it. And thanks for coming and seeing a little slice of what I do in my day to day.
Yeah, heck yeah. Thanks everyone. It was really great hanging out. I think we had a lot of people that were here yesterday that were back again today. So we really appreciate your time. I'm sure, you can find us online or social. Feel free to send me a message on Behance if you want to follow up. Yeah, it was great chatting with you all. We'll do a little high five outro. What other way?
There we
Bam!
go.
See you, everyone.
Awesome.